Hello there, guys, and welcome back to By Founders Talk from Temi, an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today, guys, we've got with us Jordan Syms, growth marketing leader and digital acquisition and retention expert at BCGX and co-founder and advisor at Tapin2. Quite a mouthful there, Jordan. Tell me, give me a little bit of a rundown. Who is Jordan Syms? Give that kind of an explanation of what all of that sums to.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my experience and to share with other founders. I'd say, first of all, I'm a growth marketer. I've been in marketing my whole career. I think of myself as a storyteller who uses products, right, to reach people. And that's how I got into this. Just being curious and being interested in what makes people tick. And I found you can kind of do that and have a good time. And here we are. I've been doing this for over 15 years.
Nice. Where are you based right now? Are you in New York now?
I am in New York. Yes.
So I see you're a Californian guy, as I understand. You went to a university college in California. I understand now being in New York. I've never been to the States at all. Tell me, what is the difference of life from compared to obviously California to New York?
So I'm born and bred in California, but I've lived in multiple places. And so I'm from Los Angeles, went to school in the Bay Area, have studied abroad in Europe, and I work in New York. I'm a kind of how do I say, a wanderer. I'm an explorer. I really like experiences and people and languages. And so
you speak Spanish, yeah?
I do speak Spanish, yes. Yes, hablo español también. So I lived in Madrid for a while and studied there. So I'd say people exaggerate our Californian sort of features, but we're very laid back, I would say. Californians are we push and we grind, right? But at the same time, there's sort of this mellowness that I think is very true. People exaggerate it, and we don't all talk like surfers. We don't all surf or live at the beach. The beach is not big enough to house all of us. But it is. I think being so close to the water and being beach centric does mellow people out. I find that everywhere I go in the world where there's beach, that's why people vacation in beachy places, right? Because there's a vibe. And so Californians and Angelinos in general have that vibe. And then New York is I've been here a couple of years now, and it took me a while to get used to it because everybody moves and everything is just so intense. And that is a difference, between New York and LA. People are, like I said, pushing and driving for what they want, but they are less aggressive about it, I would say, than New Yorkers.
How did you adapt to that? How did you adapt to the change? For those listening, obviously, that are working with kind of different nationalities, America is so huge. So it's kind of like, the different people constantly, like different mindset from the East Coast to the West Coast. How did you adapt to that change of living and work style of fast, no beach time at the end?
The first thing I had to do was, I think it took me about 6 months to understand that I was having culture shock myself, that it was just so different, right? And I was sort of grumpy about certain things or, how certain things were said or done. And then I realized, I'm not, in LA and I just have to be here, right? I have to be present. And I think that's something, it's much easier said than done, but there's always a point where you just have to realize, I'm in this new experience or place. And I have to be here and understand what this means and partake in it. And so once I did that, and my wife and I both had to do it, we would laugh because we would be comparing and, I have a lot of East Coast and New York friends, but I have not, and I visited many times, but I had not worked here, lived here. And I think that was very different, just having to realize how people speak, how people represent themselves. What might be offensive in Los Angeles is not here. Right. And so you have to just be cognizant of that. Right. And I think that's if you are working in international settings or with different cultures, you just have to be aware of that. And I think that's something I strive for that. I'm interested in that, but it's also very difficult, because it does consume energy for you to learn and understand, what is required to operate in these different environments. But at the same time, I really enjoy that.
Okay, really interesting. Let's go back to the beginning of the Jordan Syms story. Let's just go back. So 15 years in the industry, and you've encompassed different kind of roles, different industries. What initially drew you to the field of digital marketing, and how has your journey evolved over time? What was that moment where you thought, yeah, you said at the beginning that you like people, but why digital marketing?
I've always been very strategic and had plans, but then I'm open to opportunities that come my way. And so I think there were two things that were happening. So I started out in the public sector. I started my career as an urban planner, but I was an urban planner for focused on community development agreements, helping communities understand why projects were being built, getting their buy-in, more of the public relations and sort of community benefit side of urban planning. And so I was still, an anthropologist, let's say, right? But then, we had to advertise, right? We had, whether those were announcements for people to comment, we literally had to put, advertisements out to let people know that this development was coming, et cetera. And so I was advertising just by, it was required. People don't think about urban planning and advertising, but they are connected. And then later on, I moved to leading government affairs at the airport in the city of Long Beach. And I was just doing, essentially, there was the sort of government and policy side of it, but then there was the advertising side, because we needed to get people, there's a bunch of airports in Southern California, and we needed to get people to use our airport. And so we need to know why. Well, what were the benefits? It was easy. It's faster than you guys have. I know you're British. You guys have Heathrow. Our equivalent to that would be LAX. And so it's massive, right? And I've been to Heathrow before. It's not a fun place to go to, right? So we have to tell people why you don't want to go to LAX, why you want to come to this little airport, right? Even smaller than Gatwick. And so, you have to communicate that to people. And so I was doing that. And then through time, I ended up at an advertising agency. I found I really just liked digital advertising. And so I was doing sort of print with magazines and the traditional things, but then digital was really affordable and you could track it much better, right? If a magazine lays around, people don't know exactly, we know the circulation, but we don't know exactly the eyeballs that the magazine got, that ad or that we put in there. But I can tell you exactly how many people clicked on a digital ad, where they came from, demographics, things like that. And so, digital media about 12 years ago just got more and more popular. And so by sort of the power of its ability to track and be very effective, I was really into it. And then my aha moment was a friend of mine, my college roommate and I were thinking about what we wanted to do. And we just, we were working and enjoying our careers, but wanted to do more. And smartphones were these powerful little computers in people's pockets. And we said, well, I'm a diehard soccer fan. And then he is a baseball guy. And so we said, when you go to sports games, you just spend so much time in the line. What if you could just, click something and just got delivered to you? That'd be amazing, right? At the time, I'd never been in a luxury box or anything. I didn't, I know that happens in luxury areas, right? But I hadn't experienced that yet. But we thought, what if everybody could have that? Yeah. And, to use your phone to do it. And so that was the impetus. And it was just us kind of as sports fans seeing a problem that we faced. I know at soccer matches, I might miss the only goal that happened because I was, getting food or something. And baseball's long and slow. I would tease him. So he had plenty of time. But, you still might miss action. And so that was really the impetus of it, was us thinking as consumers, right? What would we want? And then I didn't know that our journey would be very circuitous, right? To build a company and a product. But that was the start of it, was really just being a customer and just saying, what would I like to solve? And so as sports fans, we created this platform that allowed you to have, order through your phone and have items, whether those were concessions or merchandise, delivered to your seat. That was really where it came from, was just us being fans of sports. And then I said, oh, this is it. I really like entrepreneurship. I really like working in innovation. I didn't know that that's what it was called at the time. It was just more, I want to do this. And we went after it, and then here we are.
I find, speaking to you guys on these podcasts, I find the best products are always the products that people go out to create themselves because it doesn't exist. And it always works the best because most probably that problem is not just yours. Other people are experiencing that problem as well. And that's why it works so well. Tell me a little bit, before we go into the product a little bit more, tell me, we were speaking about the development over the marketing over the last kind of 12 years. What have been the negative and the positive moments of its development into the technological world? What do you see now which is so much easier, but also which is so much more difficult? You said now you can get your eyes on it. You can see how many people have actually watched it and read it or seen your campaign. But what's the difference, and what were the pros and cons then to now?
Well, I think it's far more sophisticated now. There are also, I remember, then, about 12 years ago, Facebook was not nearly what it is today, right? All of the ability that you have. Most people advertise on Facebook in some way, or Instagram, the combination of them. Didn't own all the things that it owns now, like WhatsApp and all of that ecosystem did not exist. The advertising platforms didn't exist like that either. You typically have to buy through some third party, and then it would be placed on Facebook. And things you could run on Facebook there wasn't a lot of customization. So that's one thing. I think the other bit is, while people understood social media it was like a toy, people didn't understand the impact of it in terms of, it was still novel, right? And understanding that it was essential to reaching people for B2B advertising, or as well as direct to consumer advertising. And I think with traditional, I think there's a prestige that's tied to traditional. Something about a commercial, right? You think about a Super Bowl commercial or something during the Champions League, right? These are huge moments that brands take over. Yeah. I know I can't think of the Champions League and not think of Heineken right now, for example. Most of the time you think of Super Bowl and Budweiser. So they're great. Or Coca-Cola are things, right? Or the World Cup and Coca-Cola. Brands have tied themselves to these major events. And so TV is tied to that. And I think newspapers and magazines, there's a prestige that's tied to that. But I think over time, while, they're still completely viable media, and for various things, they're still really important to be used for. I think particularly as people are trying to scale, it's very expensive. And so it may not, you may not be able to use those traditional forms of media. And so, I think that's why digital has just become so powerful. The other bit about digital, I think that is in some ways, it can feel intrusive because there's so much data that we can target, right? About, people's gender, or people's ages, interests, by things that they have done. So sometimes I think that can feel a little strange to people. Like, how did I get this ad, or why did this ad hit me? So I think those are things that are different now, just because there's so many data points. But at the same time, there's a lot of legislation. Europe has its specific legislation. I know the United States and California, various states as well, have specific legislation that allows consumers to control what data is available to be used to target them. So while there's more to go after, at the same time, consumers have more ability to control what can be used.
Absolutely. Tell me, obviously we're looking more into the past then and how it's changed. How do you predict it going to be changing over the next 5 years? How are these technological advancements, ChatGPT, all of these things, how will the marketing, digital marketing sphere?
It's much like what digital is doing in other industries like music or film and television, right? It's democratizing access. So podcasts, right? The fact that we can do podcasts. Before, you used to have to go into a studio, record. And I remember I worked in a co-working studio that had a whole studio and they were recording podcasts. Now we were in Santa Monica in Los Angeles, our first office we're tap into. Now you don't have to do that. We could do this here, right? We're in different parts of the world and record podcasts. And that is not uncommon. And I think for advertising, AI is going to do the same thing and is already doing the same thing, right? Is allowing people to create pretty sophisticated campaigns with with high quality creative and messaging that resonates with specific audiences. I think, people like me who have spent a career doing this, I think that can be scary, right? Because we are professionals and we have invested quite a bit of time and expertise to develop these skills. I don't think that means it's going to go away. There will still be a need for us, but I think the ways that we work will continue to change. And, I think AI, I also think if we do it well, if anybody's seen Terminator or The Matrix, right? You don't want AI just to go off and do its own thing, right? Skynet is not good for anybody. We don't want to be living in Zion underground, right? I think we're using AI responsibly to help us is positive, right? It can allow us to be more powerful, more impactful in the campaigns that we run. But at the same time, we need to be responsible with that, right? What data are we training models on? Are people being compensated fairly for that? And then at the same time, just making sure you're using AI in the right moments for your marketing campaigns are things that marketers will be able to do to continue to use the AI for positive impact.
I absolutely agree. And I think, AI, ChatGPT, all of these things, it's just going to be like another program of a skill. It's a skill set which you have to be able to use, and that's it. It's just like any other skill. It won't take away people's job, but it will make their job a lot easier and quicker, and you can therefore perform other duties. Tell me, Jordan, in your career, you've worked on direct response marketing, e-commerce, brand building. How do you balance these different aspects to create kind of a holistic marketing strategy for your clients?
I think it's really about understanding what the client's goals are, and then who the targets are. We may be reaching multiple segments, right, of people, and what is going to resonate with that segment. And so you need to be mindful of that. And I think there's a back and forth. Sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with clients about what will work and what won't work. People, sometimes I've seen, get really caught up on a thing, whatever that thing is. It could be a newspaper article. It could be, doing a campaign to recruit people at Coachella. I mean, making these things up, right? But something very big and splashy doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And so I think you have to be willing to have difficult conversations about the priorities, and everything can't be a priority. And so you have to make sure, and I think that's equally important internally, right? That you have to, as you're working, inside of a company, when you're managing up or down, right, to the team that you're leading or working with, or the people at the highest, levels of leadership, you need to communicate why you feel how you feel. And then you're able to drive the impact. Now, you don't always win, right? Sometimes you end up having to acquiesce, but I think it's your responsibility to make sure that you are, really highlighting what the desired impact is, how these things that you're recommending are going to accomplish that. And then the last thing I'd say is phasing. It's you can't do everything all at the same time. And so you have to think of projects in components. And so, when you sort of compartmentalize that way, you're able to sort of serve the full funnel to create awareness as well as drive the sales that you're looking to drive for your product.
We were talking there obviously about the future and the past. Let's talk about the present a little bit more before we go into the product. Influencer marketing has gained obviously quite a lot of prominence in recent years. Can you give me an example of how, if you have, how you've used this kind of marketing tool, influencers, and successfully integrated it into your campaigns?
Influencer marketing is, I think, really important for many industries. If you're in gaming, for example, gamers are the celebrities of the industry, right? And so there's a technology or beauty where influencers, again, I think of people like Marcus Brownlee, who was really influential with many tech products and, Teslas and other things, right? And so influencers are celebrities. What can be difficult, though, is influencers have a brand, and sometimes they don't necessarily want to do things that are safe. And so while people may want people who are very big, those people might be very big for being a bit outrageous. And so I think if you're thinking about using influencers, you just need to be cognizant of that. They may not necessarily do everything you want them to do. And so, right, it may not end up being safe, let's say, for your brand. You may get the eyeballs, but may not get them for the reasons that you want. And so I think it's about, working with the right influencers that fit, sort of the personality of your project and your brand. And then understanding that it has to be mutually beneficial as well. I think that's something that people miss when they work with influencers. They just think, I'm going to pay this person and they're going to do what I want. And it doesn't work like that. And so you have to understand that it's really a partnership. These creators are powerful brands in and of themselves. And so if you view it that way, I think then the relationships can be fruitful.
Jordan, let's go back to the product, which we were talking about earlier. Tell me the challenges which you faced, right? Those beginning phases, the original MVP. What did it look like? And what were the challenges with the original MVP did you find?
Initially, well, it didn't look very good. First of all,
That's good.
It wasn't very attractive. Yes, right. It wasn't very attractive, and so we were doing things on our own. Funny story as well, because we were the CTO at the time was in Israel. My co-founder was in San Francisco, and I was in LA, and so we were in different parts of the world working on this initially and building our first app, and then we would go where we needed to go, right, to then test it and things like that. And so, we got a very small. Our first client was this very small sports team out in Lake Elsinore, a minor league baseball team. And so we got to test it with them, right? And they were crazy enough to believe in us, and we worked with them and sort of also stayed in the kitchen. We had to think from a product perspective. We had to think from a design perspective. Again, at the time, I didn't know these terms, right? I didn't know we were doing strategic design. We were using design thinking. I didn't know that. We just knew that we needed to do ethnography and see the people on the, we needed to understand how the client, right? The people who served food at a stadium, how did they work? So we had to sit with them. We had to watch them. We had to observe them. We had to see what technology were they using? And then similarly, we as fans, right? We would watch, while we had our own perceptions, we had to watch fans at games and see, how did they use our product as well? Did they use it in the way we thought they would use it? Did they, and I think that was something that became very interesting. Yes and no. You also found out what they needed, right, to complete the journey. Because we would only, from just, sort of logistical reasons, we would create parts of the experience, but then we realized what was essential and what was not essential. And so that was the thing. We realized, you need to bulk up, this screen a little bit more. You need to have more options here. You need to you have to be able to customize the food in this way, right? So those are things that we had to, that we learned by just sitting and observing, and doing ethnography, designing for the users, whether that was the enterprise or the end customer, right? So all of those components were really important to making sure that the MVP worked as well.
But what was over this time, what was the most challenging moment for you, which you didn't actually foresee? What was the moment where you thought, okay, this is harder than I thought it was going to be?
There were a few. I think just first making something is not easy. Building a tech product is difficult, right? You run into issues and may not get accepted by the App Store. When you're building an app, you find that there's the delay because you're making something from scratch. So you anticipate the time it'll take, et cetera, but sometimes you run into a snag that you couldn't solve. And so, a development problem might have taken longer. And so being prepared for those things, they're gonna, you plan and you strategize, but at the same time, you're gonna run into that. And that's gonna be hard. I think the other thing is seeing, you may have a very specific idea about where your product is gonna work, say the market, right? And that doesn't happen. For example, we thought mobile was going to be it. We were just like, oh yeah, these phones, this is going to be the thing. What it took us a little bit of time to realize though, we had to build a better mousetrap, essentially. The mobile was too far advanced. And so our clients, with the primary client is a stadium or arena, right? Or somebody who throws an event. And so they actually needed things like kitchen display systems. They needed, receipt printers to come out, right? It needed to be more similar to how they operated currently than what we were proposing. And so that was something that was a big turning point for us. We thought mobile was going to be the way. It's lighter, it's faster, it's easier, right? All this stuff people think of mobile, but we had to think more enterprise. And there was no way to know that, right? And we just had to listen. And I think one key moment for me was, I remember sitting with my co-founders and people kept telling us something. We were reviewing, they kept saying this thing, you should do this, you should do this. And then we said, well, if people keep telling us we should do it, we probably should do it. And so it wasn't what we wanted to do, but it was where they were asking the product to go. And as we did that, we became more successful.
I mean, of course, the right thing to do is the customer feedback always. And this is one thing that the leaders on this podcast say a lot of the time, that you may think it's your baby, and you may not want to change, be that stubborn, but sometimes when the customers are telling you no, we need something else, you need to follow the customer feedback, for sure. Tell me a little bit more about your experience over the last 15 years. What has changed for you? How has Jordan Syms changed over the last 15 years? Have you changed kind of your management style, your kind of expectations? What do you wish you know now, what do you wish you knew then, which now you know?
Something that I've gotten better at is asking for help. Knowing that you don't have to know it all, is something I would tell my younger self. I think another thing is, give yourself some grace, right? I've been very ambitious, right? And starting my own company, working for major advertising firms, moving to a major consulting firm, that works globally. But give yourself grace, as well. Sometimes, you give what you have, and sometimes you don't have that much, and that's okay. Right. You got to be the best version of yourself at that moment. I think those are some of the best lessons that I've learned.
And Jordan, last question for you, and it's more of a personal one. What would you want your lasting legacy to be? What is the Jordan Syms lasting legacy?
I would say excellence is a lasting legacy. Dreaming big, knowing that you can accomplish whatever you want. I didn't have, tech founders in my family. I did not, go to school for tech, but it was something I was extremely passionate about, and I made a career of it. But it was, so much of operating at the highest levels, but being passionate at following your heart is really important. That has really, helped me to be very successful, is doing things that I believe in. And I think, if, work is hard, all of us, right? You spend more time at work than you do with your loved ones. And so for me, it's really important to do things that I believe in and that are important to me, because then I can invest that energy, right? And make it happen. And so you can accomplish amazing things when you are passionate about them. And so that would be, what I'd want folks to know as well. When you put your mind to something, you can do anything. Literally, you can do anything beyond what you even believe you can do when you believe in.
I feel motivated now. I think it's an amazing way to finish. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing to pick your brain, know all about the world of digital marketing, know everything that you've done in your experience, and to give us all of that much needed motivation from time to time. So very nice to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the time.